Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new episode of the F1 2020 career mode here on the channel. Today we are here for race number 4 of the season here with the Chinese Grand Prix, a track that I usually have run at pretty well here in the past in the former F1 game, so my confidence was pretty high coming into here. I don't really like the track personally, but I just seem to be able to run pretty good here. So like I said, confidence was definitely high. We had some R&D stuff that didn't quite be successful with the development, so we had to obviously purchase some more, though upgrades. We're down to 240 resource points to start this episode here in the F1 2020 career mode, but we are right now just a little bit behind. Right now we're trying to catch up with them and get ahead of them, as well as McLaren, as soon as possible now as we come through here into qualifying for the Chinese Grand Prix for the first session here. So like I said, kind of expecting to get through hopefully to Q3. That would be really the expectation here in China now, as we've done a good job so far executing this season. Last time out in Vietnam it was pouring down rain, and I struggled so hard, and I just had no pace, and we managed to get a top 10 out of it, so I was very happy with that. Now as we would get underway here though for our qualifying attempt in the Chinese Grand Prix, as we go down towards turns 1 here for this first lap now, as we come through the little right bend at the end of that first sector now. So right now Magnussen was P16, the first car out, Grosjean, and then we got George Russell, and then the fellow Canadian of Nicholas Latifi there. I did cut that corner just a little bit there on the left-hand side now as we come through towards this third and final sector here, going down that long straightaway now as we come through this nice little carousel. I really like to get down towards the curb there on that carousel. It really seems like I can find more time when I do that now. As we come through though out of that final hairpin towards the final corner here in our first qualifying attempt with the DRS on. Now we come through to the line going P13 with a 131.654, so wasn't a terrible lap. I definitely had probably a little bit more in the car, but I decided to actually wait it out because it looked like I was actually going to be able to stay here. The times were looking pretty close though, so I was a little bit concerned, but I was still confident that we were going to be able to stay in Q1. Now the time would go on here as we come through right to the final seconds here of Q1, and to my surprise, we actually get eliminated from Q1. So Lance Stroll would end up coming through to beat us, and Magnussen beat us. So we dropped down. We're the first car out here, unfortunately, in Q1, barely getting beat by Magnussen. So very unfortunate. I guess I should have made a second lap. That was just an error on my part. But now we're going to have to get ready here to go green for the Chinese Grand Prix, and hopefully we can work our way up towards the top 10 here now.
Good day today. Let's have your take on it.
I wouldn't really call it a good day. Will it be a problem tomorrow? For sure. We're going to have to work our way through a lot of traffic, so hopefully we can make it happen, though. I like driving this track.
Looks like your rival bested you today, doesn't it?
I usually run good at this track. I don't like driving this track very much.
Appreciate your time.
No problem, Claire. Now let's go to the Chinese Grand Prix.
It's time to find out which driver is up to the task of claiming the Chinese Grand Prix. We're here in Shanghai. We're here in the Yangtze River Delta today, home of the 16 corners that make up the Shanghai International Circuit. 54% of this 3.3-mile lap is taken at full throttle, and we'll be getting up to speeds of around 200 miles an hour, with DRS assisting the cars down the back straight before they brake into the sharp hairpin at turn 14. With me today, of course, is Anthony Davidson. Let's talk about the rookie. They're starting towards the back of the field today in a car that is fast, so they'll be disappointed, won't they?
It's not a nice feeling, I promise you. They've got a quick car underneath them, but they've got onto the grid today and they need a pair of binoculars to see the start lights. They'll be desperate for a good start to make up for some of that deficit.
Off the back of a fantastic qualifying session, it's time to see how our starting grid looks for today's race. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and Valtteri Bottas will line up alongside. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Leclerc, Vettel, Max Verstappen and Albon, Ricciardo, Sainz, Norris and Kimi Raikkonen, Gasly, Stroll, Antonio Giovinazzi and Magnussen, the rookie, Kvyat, Romain Grosjean and George Russell, Latifi and Esteban Ocon rounds off the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
Now that we've got some points on the board, let's continue this form and aim for another top 10 finish.
All right, there you saw it there with Esteban Ocon in the Renault starting at the back with a grid penalty now, as it is going to be a one-stop strategy for us here on the medium tire over to the hard tire. We could try a two-stop if we wanted to, but we're going to go with the one-stop. Very overcast conditions throughout this whole race, as you see there on the forecast, so getting ready now to get going here in the Chinese Grand Prix. Now, hopefully, we qualified P16, we start P15. Not the greatest effort, of course, but I think we definitely, of course, have more pace in the car than where we qualified now, as our teammate Lance Stroll only a few spots better up there in P12 as we get underway for the formation lap now, as we would, of course, get around cleanly and roll back here to the grid and get ready now with the two Mercedes on the front row. Can they get off better than the Ferraris who are on row number 2? We're about to find out now as we get ready to go green. Esteban Ocon, the last car on the grid due to a grid penalty now, as we are ready to get going here, as we now got the red lights going on the screen here. The Mercedes on the front row, like I said, and we are underway here in the Chinese Grand Prix. It's a great launch, actually, for myself, to my surprise, as we go down towards turns 1, though, but the Mercedes of Valtteri Bottas under attack, 3 wide. Now up the right-hand side goes Sebastian Vettel on his left. He's got Charles Leclerc there as they come through turns 2, down towards turns 3 now, as Hamilton gets away without a single problem, but Bottas under attack now, typical Mercedes fashion. Hamilton gone, and Bottas struggles now, as Valtteri Bottas falls down to P3 behind Sebastian Vettel in the Ferrari now, as he tries to hang on over the other Ferrari teammate of Vettel, of Charles Leclerc, but Leclerc is actually going to get him, so Bottas drops down out of a podium position into P14, as I'm running now P16. I did lose 1 spot there on the start now, as you see me behind Daniel Kvyat here as we come through the little S section of this track. But what a start that was there for Valtteri Bottas, and not a good one, of course. He got taken 3 wide into turns 1 and 2 and 3 even, just to fall down to the 4th position. So very unfortunate for the Mercedes driver, the teammate of Lewis Hamilton. Bottas so far been the best driver this season on Mercedes. He's dominated the opening part of the season, and he looks to try and fight his way back here in these opening laps to get back up into P1 and have a chance to win the Chinese Grand Prix. Now as we come through out of the carousel, heading down this long back straightaway, we have the run on the back of Daniel Kvyat here, as we're going to put the overtake mode on the ERS, and we pass Kvyat. Now Magnussen coming to the right side of the track. I'm going to try and thread the needle with this contact there. We make big contact with Magnussen and lose a part of our wing on the left-hand side. What the was he thinking? Did he not see me coming over there? There you heard the radio transmission from myself now, as we're going to be forced here to come to the pit lane on lap 1. A terrible start here for us now all of a sudden, as we're going to have to come into the pit box, replace the wing. Of course, I was panicking at this point, deciding what do I do here with the tire. We actually are going to put the soft tire on the car. It did say medium, sorry, we are going to put the medium tire on the car and save the softs now, as we are going to come into the pit box. It's going to be a lengthy pit stop now, unfortunately, as we are as well going to check out the replays of what just happened. I didn't feel like I was at fault. I felt like Magnussen just came far too over to the right. Maybe it was my fault. Maybe I should have backed out on lap 1, but you got to be so aggressive on these starts to try and get what you can get now. But of course, due to that incident, we are going to be way behind and in a lot of trouble here. We're going to need a lot of luck now to rebound, as we're going to get a replay here on the screen of everything that just happened. Unfortunately, there's you see me coming through, moving to the right along with Magnussen, but I felt like if I went any further right, I was going to go into the grass, and I just ran into the back of him. Here you see the replay from Magnussen. Of course, he's just coming over to the right, as well as we got an angle from the AlphaTauri here. I believe that was Kvyat. Yeah, it was. And just unfortunately, just us coming together, but we have to stay focused here on the race in China now, as Lewis Hamilton came through to set the fastest lap of the session so far, as he's already at the line and we're all the way back here. So a lot of work to do now. We're almost within range of getting a Williams, though, when they come out of the pit lane now, as we go down towards turns 1. I really didn't know how to approach the rest of this race at this point now. I was just hoping that we are going to get a lot of luck coming into our favor, but we had some drivers come into the pit lane. Daniel Ricciardo in the Renault, as well as Carlos Sainz there in the McLaren. And they were already, though, still like 10 seconds ahead of me, and I still would have to make an extra pit stop now, as there's actually big trouble down the back straightaway out of nowhere. AlphaTauri of, I believe that was Daniel Kvyat, has gone crashing. Yes, Kvyat out of the session. Safety car is out, saving our race, and we're going to get a full-on replay here. You see Kvyat had the DRS open, and then right behind Magnussen, he just overcorrects and goes crashing. A massive shunt right there from Kvyat. You saw the angle again from the back of Magnussen now, as what a moment what that was, and all of a sudden, that saves our race because we're going to come to the pit lane. I didn't come the first time in, but the second lap through here, I decided to come in, and we're now going to put the soft tire on because the only mediums we have left are used mediums. So I decided, you know what, we're going to put the soft tire on because we were not going to lose anything. We were still in last place even after some AI had come in. So, like I said, putting the soft tire on, and we're going to probably get this thing to go hopefully to lap 14, 15-ish at least, and then we'll come in and put the hard tire on and go to the finish. So, it's not a lost cause anymore. Now, of course, I'm trying to run down the big group of cars up ahead, and it definitely took me a little bit, but we came through now on lap 8, and we had run them down. Now, as the safety car will be in this lap as we get ready to go green here once again in China. So, it is actually a Ferrari currently leading the way now of, I believe that was Sebastian Vettel, if I'm not mistaken, who will be out front possibly now as we are back underway here in the Chinese Grand Prix. The safety car is off, and now we have a chance to actually fight for a solid finish here in the Chinese Grand Prix now as we come through to cross the line. 20 laps to go here in China now as we have the ERS to overtake. I did not mention we actually are having engine problems in this race just due to the wear on the components of the car that I forgot to change now as we come through out of the carousel here on lap 9, getting right on the back there of Esteban Ocon in the Renault, but you can see the engine power. We're definitely struggling now. We have the ERS in overtake, and now we get up the right hand side here of Ocon, but as soon as I pulled out of the draft of the slipstream, it just completely just died on me. I couldn't do anything, but we fight back up the left hand side though of Esteban Ocon here as we come through out of the hairpin, and we actually make the pass on him as we go down towards the final corner. So we take over P18 and now try to side our sights on Kevin Magnussen. We haven't been around him since that incident on lap 1 here as we come through, passing a few drivers that come into the pit lane. Charles Leclerc, Max Verstappen, and whatnot. Now as we come through out of the carousel again on lap 10, we get up the right hand side of Kevin Magnussen and try to pass him this time now as we go down the back straightaway, the same straightaway where we made that big contact. As you see, the view from the McLaren in front of us now has actually had to pull in, unfortunately, behind Magnussen, as I just didn't have anything for him now as he pulled over in front of me and we nearly drilled him right in the back. That's the second time, guys, that he's done that. I don't know if that one was on me, but oh my goodness, I thought I was going to smash right into the back of him. There you heard again the radio transmission from myself. I thought I was going to drive right into the back of Magnussen there. Now as we would run down the Williams of Latifi, who was just fading through the field. But obviously we lost a spot, unfortunately, to Ocon after that had happened with Magnussen again. Now as we came through into turns 1, though, getting up the inside of Nicholas Latifi, a fellow Canadian, and passing him. So far this Chinese Grand Prix not going exactly how I had had in mind or had preferred it to go. Now as we're already almost halfway through this Grand Prix as well. Charles Leclerc now is closing in on the back of us pretty quick. Ocon now gets up the inside of George Russell in the Williams as we come through right on the back of him, having to get out of the throttle just for a moment there, but we do fight back here on the right hand side, and we're going to pass him for now the 13th position here. So we're closing in, like I said, on the halfway point of this race, and now we try to get the run on Esteban Ocon, but just could not quite get to him. So we come through now out of the final corner, coming to lap 14. Charles Leclerc as well as Max Verstappen have now run us down, as now we have another group of cars heading. Valtteri Bottas being one of those drivers now as we go down into this first corner. I decide we're going to stay a little bit left here and just kind of let Charles Leclerc have it now as we come through towards the second corner, just about having some contact actually with Max Verstappen, as he would look like he was trying to get into that hole that was open for a moment. And now as we come through out of this corner, we actually had a little bit of oversteer there. The car didn't turn very great either. It kind of got really tight, and then, like I said, kind of got oversteery, and I lost the spot there to Max Verstappen. So no effort really from him to get that spot. Now as we came through though on the end of lap 14, I see this massive group of cars kind of building up right here. So I decide we're going to come into the pit lane this time, and then I see my teammate Lance Stroll is actually coming in, but I decide, you know what, we're going to try the double stack here in the pit lane and see if we can pull it off now as we go down into the pit lane. I was confident there's enough of a gap between myself and Stroll to make the stack work here on the pit lane, but unfortunately as he's in the pit box, there comes the Alfa Romeo there, and that actually made Lance have to wait. So now him waiting impedes my pit stop. We get a little bit of a delay. Now they're putting the tires on the car, but definitely held us up a little bit. It wasn't terrible, but definitely a costly pit stop now as the Alfa Romeo of Giovinazzi gets off and underway as we come through out in P17. And now we're going to have to once again pass Kevin Magnussen as well as Roman Grosjean, but we would definitely be able to run down Magnussen without a problem at all. We come through here down the back straightaway using that DRS. We go up the right hand side of him side by side as we go down towards that penultimate corner, and we take take over P16 and now set our sights on Magnussen's teammate of Roman Grosjean. And sure enough, we would run down Grosjean as well. And now the front straightaway here, hitting lap 17, a little bit over 10 laps to go. We look to the left-hand side of Grosjean into turns 1, and we make the pass on him as well as we try to run down Antonio Giovinazzi. So we come through towards the back half of lap 17. We have a caution right behind us. It's actually for Grosjean, who's having a mechanical failure. He's going to pull off to the right-hand side of the track. No safety car needed as he's not really in a dangerous position. So he is out of the Grand Prix now as we, like I said, keep things green and now try to run down Antonio Giovinazzi there in the Alfa Romeo. And sure enough, we were closing the gap to him. We come through now at lap 19 with the DRS activated. Once we get right there to that line now, and we, of course, have the ERS in overtake mode, we're going to look to the right-hand side of Giovinazzi down towards the penultimate corner, and now once we pass him, we'll be setting our sights on Esteban Ocon. So we get past Giovinazzi. Ocon, though, on the medium tire to the end of this race, it looks like. So he's on the faster tire, but his tires are going to wear quicker, so therefore towards the end of this race, it really should play into our favor now as we have less than 10 laps to go at this point. 2.8 seconds, now 3 seconds to Ocon there, as I did not have a great corner, but then Albon, he had actually come in and made a pit stop, so he comes out just in front of myself here in P14, but now 2 seconds to Ocon, so we'd gained about a second to Esteban Ocon in about 3 laps, so we were definitely closing that gap. Ocon was trying to put the pressure on our teammate, actually, of Lance Stroll. We were closing in as well on Stroll now as we go down towards the end of that first sector, but just trying to stay with it. Ocon got battling with Alex Albon, who had run him down. He actually had a lockup into that left-hander, and that would allow me to get even closer, now within half a second of Esteban Ocon here within the final handful of laps of this race here in China. And there you see Albon, though, putting the pressure on the back of our teammate, of Lance Stroll. But sure enough here, lap 25, DRS activated down the back straightaway, ERS to overtake, trying to get a move here on Ocon now as he goes defensive towards the hairpin, or not the hairpin, towards the penultimate corner. He locks up now, but we managed to get alongside on the left-hand side on the curbing just a little bit here as we're side by side. He's not going to give up as we go down to the final corner, side by side into there, but we get the move made and now take the position away from Esteban Ocon. But now clearly looking like we're not even going to get a top 10 out of this with 3 laps to go now as Stroll runs only 1 position better than myself. He's 2 seconds ahead here with 3 laps to go as I'm doing everything I can to try and get in closer to Stroll. We cut down that gap now with 2 laps to go to about 1.5 seconds. So closing in, sure enough, on the back of Stroll as he was right on the back of Pierre Gasly there in the AlphaTauri. And we came through, though, to start the final lap here. Now less than a second between myself and Stroll, and almost 3 seconds to Esteban Ocon behind us here as we come through turns 1 and 2. There you see Gasly just trying to hang on to that 11th position now as we're closing in pretty quickly here on the back of both Stroll and Gasly. And if we can play our cards right here, we'll have a chance to pass them both now as we are on this final lap here in the Chinese Grand Prix. Just a little bit over half a second, though, between myself and Stroll here as we come through the right hand of the fastest sector 1 we've had so far in the race, but a little bit of oversteer right there definitely does not help us very much in our journey to run down our teammate here and fellow Canadian of Lance Stroll now as we come through the S's for the final time. But it is a Mercedes, though, out front here on this final lap of the Chinese Grand Prix. It is Lewis Hamilton, not Valtteri Bottas. Bottas, though, in P2 right there behind Hamilton, but had nothing for him as Hamilton wins. 2nd place goes to Valtteri Bottas. 3rd place will actually go to Sebastian Vettel now as he comes through out of that penultimate corner. But unfortunately, the gap was now up to 0.7 of a second here down this final back straightaway here as the DRS is activated. Overtake mode, of course, on the ERS, but just not anywhere near close enough to get to these guys. So we go down towards the penultimate corner here for the final time. Gasly, P11, Stroll, P12. We close in quite a bit there on Stroll, but of course, not going to be enough here as we go down towards the final corner. So for the first time this season, we're going to get a finish outside of the points, and Stroll finishes 12th for the 3rd time this season.
That's the end of the race. We'll see you in Parc Ferme.
It's a performance to be proud of from our Chinese Grand Prix winners today. And talk to me, what do you think it was that sealed the win for them?
It was a question of right place, right time today. We were looking at an entirely different race before the safety car came out, but they were able to take full advantage after the field had been bunched up.
So after a magnificent race, we can now see the drivers making their way to the podium. Once again, it's the Silver Arrows who take top spot, A well-earned victory for Mercedes.
There you saw the podium celebration there with Lewis Hamilton, Valtteri Bottas, as well as Sebastian Vettel. A great result for the Renault driver of Daniel Ricciardo to come home in P4, but a little bit disappointed there that we finished P13. Honestly, with the first 4 tracks on the season, I felt like China is one of my best ones out of those 4, so definitely disappointed that this ended up being the first one there we didn't get any points at. Now as we drop down to the 11th position in the points, Stroll in P8, he's finished 12th 3 times, but he had a second place finish, of course, that put him way ahead of us there in points. Now we're P6 in the Constructors as well, but like I said, definitely a little bit disappointed with that. Now, as you see, Lewis Hamilton, though, coming out with the victory, but Bottas actually had the fastest lap of the day here in the Chinese Grand Prix. But as always, if you guys enjoyed this episode, you do know what to do. Of course, we got some R&D we can do, as we have over 1,000 resource points now to spend, and I decided we're going to do it right there in the aerodynamics. We can do a chassis upgrade, but I actually did not have the points to do that for the one that actually failed previously. But before we go into the next episode, of course, we're going to make sure that we get some of these damaged parts changed, so we don't have a engine power output issue in the next one, where we're going to the Netherlands in the next episode. I've never done a race there, so very excited. Of course, a new track to the schedule like Vietnam was. I really hope it's not raining. Vietnam is such a fun track, but in the rain, it was a pain. I got the rhyme game going today. Now, as you see, once again, the standings on your screen one more time. But Bottas, that's the first time this season he has not won. And for Lewis Hamilton, it's the first time this season that he has won. So Bottas' worst finish of the season so far is second. He's having a great start to the season now, as Hamilton's really going to have to turn it up here if he wants to beat Valtteri Bottas this season for a championship. But of course, going into this brand new track here in the Netherlands, I don't know what to expect. Maybe you guys can tell me in the comments. It's going to be an interesting one, and hopefully we can have a good run there. I'm hoping that we can keep up more consistency here with the F1 series. I'm going to try really hard. But thank you all for taking the time out of your day to watch this episode. And I will see you guys in the next one here for the Netherlands. Have a great day, everybody.
Make sure you indicate what you'd like redeveloped via the R&D screen.